Griffin Ellis didn't mean to grab the wrong shopping cart, but when a toddler's wail pierced through aisle 6 of the crowded grocery store, instinct kicked in faster than reason. Hey, it's okay, little guy," he said, crouching beside the child in the cart, definitely not his. What happened? Did Mom just step away? The boy, maybe 3 or 4, hiccuped through his sobs, clutching a stuffed dinosaur like it was the last safe thing on earth. Griffin gently offered him a packet of animal crackers from his own cart. "You like these?" "My daughter calls them magic cookies." The boy's cries quieted to sniffles as he took the bag with shaky hands. Griffin smiled. "There you go, kiddo," a sharp voice, controlled but clearly distressed, cut through the air. "Teddy," Griffin stood, turning toward the sound. A woman in sleek black heels and a tailored trench coat rushed over, her eyes wide with panic. Her hair was pulled up, not a strand out of place, but there was something wildly unguarded in her face as she saw her son holding Griffin's crackers. "Oh my God, he was just right here. I turned for 1 second. It's okay," Griffin interrupted gently, holding up his hands. "He didn't go far. I found him crying and stayed with him." The woman dropped to her knees in front of the boy, hugging him tight. "You scared me, Teddy." "You can't run off like that. I was looking for you," Teddy mumbled into her shoulder. Griffin stepped back, awkward but calm. "He's okay now." She looked up at him, her expression shifting from panic to grateful relief, her eyes bright, stormy gray locked with his. "Thank you," she breathed. "Seriously, thank you." "No problem," Griffin said with a small smile. "I've got a 4-year-old myself. I know how fast they disappear when you blink." "I'm Vanessa," she said, standing and brushing her coat. "Vanessa Keene. And this little escape artist is my son, Teddy." Griffin extended a hand. "Griffin Ellis, and I've got a daughter, Tessa. She's probably hiding in the cereal aisle right now, trying to sneak marshmallow puffs into the cart." Vanessa chuckled an easy, surprised laugh that made Griffin glance at her again. She was beautiful in a composed, expensive-looking way, but the laugh made her human. "You're a single dad?" she asked. "Yeah," he said. 3 years now." He didn't say more. No need to get into the mess of custody hearings or the fact that he was juggling 2 jobs to keep their small apartment. Vanessa tilted her head. "You seem calm." "Most people panic when they see a crying kid in their cart." "Panic doesn't help," he said simply. Teddy, now munching contentedly on crackers, reached for Griffin's hand. "You're nice." Griffin smiled down at him. "Thanks, buddy." Vanessa blinked, clearly not expecting the warmth in her chest. She glanced at the man again. He wore a faded jacket, jeans with a patch on the knee, and sneakers that had seen better days. But his voice, calm, steady, kind, and when he looked at her son, it wasn't with pity or annoyance, it was with heart. They parted ways at the checkout, but Griffin lingered in her mind longer than she expected. 3 days later, Griffin was rushing into the community center with Tessa on his hip, both of them damp from a sudden downpour. He was late for his janitorial shift and had to drop Tessa off at the playroom. "Daddy, my boots are squishy," Tessa whispered. "I know, honey. We'll take them off soon, okay?" a woman's voice answered before Griffin could respond. "We've got towels and dry socks." He turned and blinked. Vanessa stood near the donation table, her hair in a ponytail now, wearing jeans and a fitted navy sweater. She looked different, softer, casual, like she belonged here. "Hey," she said, smiling. "Need a hand?" Griffin stared, surprised. "Vanessa." "What are you doing here?" "I volunteer on Thursdays," she said. "Kids literacy program." Tessa peeked over Griffin's shoulder. "She's pretty." Vanessa laughed. "Hi, Tessa. Want to help me pick out some dry socks?" Griffin hesitated, but when Tessa eagerly nodded, he let her down gently. "I didn't know you volunteered here," he said, watching them. "There's a lot people don't know about me," she said with a shrug, leading Tessa to the table. "Like the fact I can survive without my assistant, or that I make a mean grilled cheese." Griffin raised an eyebrow, amused. "Grilled cheese, huh? That's a bold claim," she grinned. "I have layers." He chuckled and rubbed the back of his neck. "Well, thanks again. I should go mop a hallway or something." "Wait," she said. "Are you free after your shift?" Griffin paused. "Why?" "Because I owe you a coffee for saving my son, and I want to know more about the guy who stayed calm in a storm." The coffee turned into dinner, nothing fancy, just a burger joint down the street from the center. Tessa and Teddy sat across from them, swapping fries and giggling. "So what do you do?" Griffin asked between bites. Vanessa hesitated. "Consulting." Griffin nodded, accepting it. "You like it. It has its perks." She didn't elaborate, and he didn't push. Instead, they talked about their kids, their favorite cartoons, and how hard it was to find sneakers that fit toddlers properly. Griffin talked about losing his wife to illness, how hard it had been. Vanessa listened, eyes soft, heart aching. She told him she'd been divorced for 2 years. No drama, just two people who grew apart and nothing left to hold onto except Teddy. When the kids fell asleep in the booth, Vanessa glanced at Griffin's hand resting near hers. "You're different," she said softly. "Different good or different run for the hills?" "Good," she whispered. "Very good." He looked at her then, really looked, and despite the tired circles under her eyes and the simple way she dressed that day, there was something luminous about her, like she lit up the space around her. "You're not too bad yourself," he said. She smiled, leaning in. Neither of them noticed the waiter, who gaped a little when he recognized Vanessa Keene, billionaire CEO of Keene Innovations, out in public with a janitor and 2 kids in a booth. But she didn't care. For the first time in years, Vanessa didn't feel like she was pretending. She looked at Griffin. And she felt something real. Griffin hadn't expected her to show up again. But the following week, as he walked Tessa into the playroom at the community center, Vanessa was already there on the floor, barefoot, reading a picture book to a group of wide-eyed kids. Her voice was animated, her ponytail lopsided, and her laugh just a little too loud rang out like she'd forgotten herself. Tessa tugged his sleeve. "Can I sit with her?" He nodded, and his daughter slipped out of his grasp and nestled beside Vanessa without hesitation. Vanessa didn't miss a beat. She looped her arm around Tessa like she belonged there. Later, when the kids were painting paper crowns and Griffin was mopping the hallway outside the multipurpose room, Vanessa appeared in the doorway holding a cup. "You like green tea with honey, right?" she asked. He glanced up from the mop. "How do you know that? You left a cup on the bench last time," she said, stepping closer. I remembered. He accepted the drink, surprised. "Most people don't notice that kind of thing." "I'm not most people," she said. He leaned against the wall, wiping sweat from his brow with his sleeve. "No, you're not." She studied him for a second. "You always this steady." "I don't have time not to be." She looked down at her shoes. "Must be exhausting." "Sometimes, but I've got Tessa. That keeps me upright." Vanessa nodded, watching the mop water ripple in the bucket. "Do you ever take a break?" He gave a short laugh. "Define break." She met his eyes. "A day without cleaning after strangers. A day not dictated by bills or appointments or nap schedules." "Sounds like a fantasy." She took a breath, then said, "What if I made it real?" He raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "Let me take you and Tessa to the aquarium. It's quiet during the week, less stress. I'll cover tickets and lunch." He hesitated. "That's not necessary." "I didn't say it was. I want to. Teddy's obsessed with jellyfish." "I thought maybe we could make it a thing." He leaned back, arms folded. "You're offering to take my daughter and me on a field trip. I'm offering to spend the day together. No obligations." He studied her eyes, then nodded slowly. "All right, but only if you let me handle lunch," she smiled. "Deal?" They didn't talk about it again until Saturday morning, when Vanessa's black SUV pulled up in front of Griffin's building. Nothing flashy, but spotless and gleaming. Griffin lifted Tessa into her booster seat as Vanessa greeted them both, her hands full of snacks and juice boxes. "You came prepared," he said. "I have a list and a backup plan for the backup plan," she said, buckling Teddy in on the other side. "I don't do chaos." He closed the door, sliding into the passenger seat. "You'll love being around me then." At the aquarium, Vanessa was different. Not the composed woman from before. She rolled her eyes when Teddy demanded a second turn at the stingray tank and danced with Tessa under the glowing jellyfish dome. Griffin watched her from a few steps away, hands in his pockets, a strange warmth building in his chest. "You're good with them," he said when they sat down for lunch at a quiet cafe nearby. "They're easier than adults," she said, brushing Teddy's hair back. "Kids don't pretend." He took a sip of water. "You pretend a lot, more than I'd like to admit." Tessa tugged his sleeve. "Daddy, Miss Vanessa got me a goldfish bracelet from the gift shop." He turned to Vanessa. "You didn't have to buy her anything." "I wanted to," she said simply. He looked down at his daughter's wrist, the plastic charm sparkling in the sun, and swallowed the lump in his throat. After lunch, the kids fell asleep in their car seats on the drive back. Griffin glanced at Vanessa as she drove. "You're not like anyone I've met before." She kept her eyes on the road. "Neither are you." He rubbed his palms over his jeans. "You're not just a volunteer, are you?" She didn't answer right away. "Then, I run a company, a big one." He nodded slowly. "That tracks. You're not. Weirded out." "I don't care what you do. I care how you treat people." She turned to look at him briefly, something unspoken hanging between them. When she pulled up to his building, she didn't get out. He unbuckled Tessa, resting her head against his shoulder. "Thanks for today," he said. It meant a lot to her. "What about you?" He paused. "I didn't know I needed it." She reached over and gently touched his forearm. "You deserve more than just surviving, Griffin." He met her gaze. "What if I don't know how to want more? Then I'll teach you." He stepped out of the car, heart pounding, and for the first time in a long while, he wondered what it would feel like not just to exist, but to be chosen. He didn't know yet that she already had. Griffin didn't expect the invitation to the gala. It came in a thick, ivory envelope tucked into Tessa's backpack when he picked her up from the community center's afternoon program. The moment he opened it, his chest tightened. It was embossed, formal, and carried the unmistakable weight of money. The kind of event held in glass towers with valet parking and champagne that cost more than his grocery bill for the month. He turned it over, rereading the small notes scrawled in Vanessa's handwriting at the bottom. "You don't have to say yes. But if you do, I'd like to see you there." Tessa peeked over his arm. "What's that, Daddy?" He quickly folded it. "Just something from Miss Vanessa." "Are we going?" He hesitated. "We'll see." Griffin didn't sleep that night. He lay awake thinking about what it meant, about how far her world was from his, about how easily she'd crossed into his life without blinking. But stepping into hers, that was different. The next morning, while Tessa was still brushing her teeth, he called Vanessa. "I got the invitation," he said. "I wasn't sure if I should send it," she admitted, "but I want you there. I don't have anything to wear to something like that. I'll take care of it. That's not why I'm hesitating." "I didn't think it was." There was a pause. "Griffin," she said, quieter now. "I'm not trying to parade you in front of people. I want you next to me. For once, I want to walk into a room full of people and not feel like I'm alone." His grip on the phone tightened. "I'm not used to this," he said. "I know," he exhaled. "All right. I'll come." The next afternoon, a courier delivered a box to his apartment. Inside, wrapped in tissue paper, was a tailored navy suit, a crisp white shirt, and polished dress shoes. There was no price tag, just a small card. "Can't wait to see you." The night of the gala, Tessa stayed with Mrs. Patel from down the hall. Griffin stood in front of the mirror, adjusting his tie for the third time, unsure how a janitor ended up wearing a silk-lined suit that felt like it belonged to someone else. Vanessa met him outside the hotel in a car with dark windows and a driver in a black cap. When the door opened, her breath caught. "You look uncomfortable," he offered. "Devastating," she finished. He looked her over. She wore a floor-length gown the color of midnight, her hair swept up, a thin diamond bracelet at her wrist. She looked regal, untouchable. And yet, when she took his hand, it was with the same warmth she had on the first night they'd had burgers and fries. Inside the ballroom, crystal chandeliers glittered above them. Waiters moved like shadows with silver trays, and a string quartet played something classical he couldn't name. Griffin kept his shoulders straight, his steps measured. "You okay?" Vanessa whispered as they crossed the floor. "I've vacuumed carpets like this," he said. "Never walked on one." She gave his hand a squeeze. "You're doing fine." Griffin caught glances, curious, assessing. A few familiar faces raised eyebrows. Vanessa didn't flinch. She introduced him to CEOs, venture capitalists, a senator. Griffin kept his answers brief, his manners sharp, but inside he was counting the steps to the nearest exit. During a lull in conversation, Vanessa led him to a quiet corner near the balcony, away from the glittering crowd. "I didn't bring you here to test you," she said. "I know. You're thinking about how different our lives are." He looked out over the city lights. "It's hard not to." She followed his gaze. "You think I don't notice the way people look at us. I think you don't care." "I don't," she said, "because I've spent years surrounded by people who talk but never really listen." "You listen, Griffin." "That's rare." He turned to her, the city behind them, I don't know how I fit into your life. You don't have to fit in, she said. You just have to be in it. He blinked, caught off guard by the simplicity of her words. You don't want someone with a matching resume. I want someone who doesn't lie to me, someone who shows up, someone who looks at me like I'm more than my net worth. He hesitated. Us, it's not going to be easy. I don't want easy, she said, stepping closer. I want real. Before he could respond, a voice interrupted. Vanessa. They turned. A man with salt and pepper hair and a stiff posture approached. His gaze flicked to Griffin with practiced condescension. Elliot, she said coolly. I wasn't aware you'd be bringing a guest tonight. I didn't realize you were still on the board, she replied, her tone flat. The man's eyes narrowed. He's not. With one of the vendors, is he? Griffin straightened but said nothing. Vanessa's smile was all teeth. This is Griffin Ellis. He's the man who reminded me people matter more than portfolios. Elliot's expression faltered just for a moment. I see. No, she said, you don't, but that's okay, you never did. As the man walked away, Griffin let out a breath. Old boss, he asked. Once, she said. He thought kindness was weakness. Griffin looked at her. You put people like that in their place often, only when it matters. Later that night, as the gala wound down and the city stretched quiet outside the car window, Vanessa rested her head lightly on Griffin's shoulder. You were wrong, by the way, she said. About what? You fit into my life just fine. He didn't speak. Just reached for her hand and held it all the way home. Vanessa hadn't meant for Griffin to see the headlines. But by the time she walked into the community center that Monday morning, the whispers had already started. He was standing near the front desk, arms crossed, tension carved into every line of his shoulders. A copy of the business magazine lay open in his hand. She didn't need to see the page to know what it said. Billionaire Vanessa Keene debuts Mystery Man at Gala. A quiet romance with a working-class hero. She stopped a few feet from him. I didn't know they'd run that. Griffin closed the magazine and handed it to the receptionist without a word. Then he turned, his voice low but steady. Is this what we're doing now, becoming a story? I didn't call anyone. I didn't ask for the attention, she said, but you knew it might happen. I knew people might talk, he said. I didn't know I'd be an article. She stepped closer, careful not to raise her voice. I didn't share anything about you. They made assumptions. He looked past her, jaw tight. People I work with saw it. Parents at Tessa's school are asking questions. You might be used to this kind of scrutiny, but I'm not. I never wanted to put you or Tessa in a spotlight. But it happened, he said, his eyes meeting hers. And I don't know how to protect her from something I can't control. Vanessa's voice dropped. I never meant to make your life harder. Griffin exhaled through his nose. It's not just about me. Tessa asked if we're going to be rich now, or if her friends will stop playing with her because their moms saw a picture. Vanessa's heart clenched. I'll call the magazine. Ask them to take the story down. You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. She nodded slowly. So what do we do? He was silent for a long moment. Then he said, I need time. She didn't argue, just watched him walk down the hallway and disappear around the corner. That night, Vanessa sat alone in her penthouse, the city glittering beneath her, and stared at her phone without touching it. She'd spent years learning how to control the narrative, earn the board's respect, steer public perception, build a company from the ground up. But this was something else entirely. She couldn't fix this with a press release. Teddy padded into the room in his pajamas, clutching a pillow. Can I sleep with you tonight? She nodded and lifted him onto her lap. He leaned against her chest and yawned. I like Griffin. And Tessa? I know, she whispered. Are they coming back? Her throat tightened. I hope so. The next 2 days passed in a blur. Vanessa canceled meetings. She went to the community center and read to the kids, but Griffin wasn't there. She left a note with Mrs. Patel asking if Tessa needed anything, but no one called. By Thursday, the ache in her chest had settled into something colder. That evening, she stood before the board of directors at Keene Innovations, presenting a new community outreach program. But her voice, usually sharp and assured, faltered. Someone asked a question and she asked them to repeat it. Afterward, her assistant approached. Are you all right? I'm fine, she lied. You haven't been, he said gently, since Saturday. She didn't respond. Just walked to her office and shut the door behind her. She sat at her desk, staring at the framed photo of her and Teddy at the aquarium. Her fingers hovered over her phone, then dropped. She didn't call, but Griffin did. It was late, nearly midnight, when her phone buzzed. She answered on the first ring. "Hey," he said, her heart leapt. "Hi, I'm sorry I walked away like that. You had every right." He was quiet for a moment, then said, "Tessa misses you. She asked if we did something wrong." Vanessa closed her eyes. "You didn't." I told her that. But I needed a second to catch my breath. I'm not used to being seen by strangers. "Neither am I," she admitted. He laughed softly. "Somehow I don't believe that." "I mean really seen," she said. "Not the version people expect." Another pause. "Vanessa," he said, "I'm not good at this. I fix broken light fixtures, not broken expectations." "But he stopped himself. "Can we talk, in person?" She was already grabbing her coat. He met her outside the center. The lot was empty, the streetlights casting long shadows across the pavement. She stepped out of the car and walked toward him slowly. "Hi." They stood in silence, the kind that hummed with every word left unsaid. Finally, Griffin spoke. "I don't want to be a headline. But I also don't want to lose what we have just because it got complicated." Vanessa stepped closer. "Neither do I. I've been scared," he said. "Not of you, but of what it means to let someone in this deep." "You think I haven't been?" she asked softly. "You're the first man who's looked at me like I'm more than my last quarter's earnings. That terrifies me." Griffin reached for her hand. "I can't give you yachts or summers in Tuscany." "I don't want any of that," she said. "I want someone who sees my son as more than a photo op. Someone who holds my hand when everything feels like it's spinning." "I can do that," he said. "If you'll have me." She stepped into him, wrapped her arms around his waist, and pressed her head to his chest. "I already do." He kissed her then, not like the moment demanded it, but like the moment had waited for it. Slow, sure, honest. And when they pulled apart, the world felt a little less impossible. Weeks passed, and things didn't magically get easier, but they got real. Griffin moved into a better apartment, one Vanessa helped him find but didn't pay for. He asked for that. Pride mattered, and she respected it. Tessa and Teddy became inseparable. There were movie nights and pancake mornings, long walks through the park, and shared bedtime stories. Eventually, Vanessa stood before a small crowd of friends and family in a sunlit garden, wearing a pale silver dress that fluttered at her ankles, holding Griffin's hands as he whispered vows that had nothing to do with money and everything to do with love. "I never thought I'd have this again," he said. "But then you walked into my life like a hurricane in heels." Laughter rippled through the guests. She smiled, tears in her eyes. "And you were the calm I didn't know I needed." They kissed beneath hanging lights and lavender, with their children clapping in the front row. And as they walked down the aisle, hand in hand, the world didn't feel divided anymore. It just felt right. Because for all the differences, for all the headlines and doubts and unexpected turns, Vanessa hadn't fallen for a janitor. She'd fallen for a man with a gentle heart. And he had chosen her, again and again, with the quiet strength that had saved her from loneliness without ever asking for anything in return. The rain hadn't been forecasted, but Griffin didn't mind. Not when Vanessa was standing beneath a striped umbrella beside him, her hand tucked inside his jacket pocket, her fingers laced with his like it was their permanent home. They were at Tessa and Teddy's joint school fair, watching from a distance as the kids darted between booths, their laughter rising above the patter of rain on tents. Griffin glanced sideways at Vanessa, her heels traded for sneakers, her hair loose down her back. "I wouldn't have pictured you in a place like this," he said, voice low. She tilted her head. "Because of the mud, because of the cotton candy," he teased, nodding at the blue swirl in her other hand. She held it up triumphantly. "I used to beg my nanny for this stuff. Now I get to eat it without asking permission." He chuckled, brushing a rain-speckled strand of hair from her cheek. "You've changed." Her smile faded to something softer. "I've stopped pretending I haven't." They stood in silence for a moment, the kind that didn't feel empty. Then Vanessa turned to face him fully. "Griffin, there's something I've been working on, and I want to show it to you." He raised an eyebrow. "Now? No, tonight. Come by the office, bring Tessa. Teddy'll be there too." She didn't say more, and Griffin didn't press. He'd learned that when Vanessa wanted to show him something, it was never just a small thing. That evening, after dinner and homework, Griffin drove them to Keen Innovations. The building stood tall, all glass and steel, but inside the atmosphere was different, warmer. The security guard smiled like he'd been told to expect them. Vanessa met them in the lobby, Teddy holding her hand. She was dressed down in jeans and a knit sweater, clipboard under one arm. "Everything's ready," she said, leading them to the elevator. Tessa clutched Griffin's hand. "Are we going to your real job?" she asked Vanessa. The elevator dinged, and the doors opened to a floor that didn't look like the rest of the building. Gone were the marble floors and sleek conference rooms. Instead, it was a wide open space filled with color-low bookshelves, activity tables, chalkboard walls, soft rugs, and a small stage in the corner. Griffin froze. "What is this?" Vanessa smiled. "It's part of our new initiative, a community learning and care center. For working parents who need safe, enriching after-school spaces for their kids. It's funded, staffed, and launching in 3 weeks." He turned to her slowly. "You built this, with you in mind, and people like you, parents who hold everything together but never get support. You inspired it." Tessa ran to the reading nook and plopped onto a beanbag, opening one of the books. Griffin swallowed hard. "People are going to feel seen here." "That's the point," she said, "and I want you to help run it." His brows drew together. "I'm not qualified for—" "Yes, you are," she cut in. "You're already doing it every day. I'll bring in the admin team, you bring the heart." He looked at her, emotion thick in his voice. "You're serious?" "I don't do things halfway, Griffin." He laughed softly, running a hand down his face. "You're going to change lives with this." She stepped closer. "I already changed mine." He reached out and pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly in the center of the room she'd built for people like him. "Like them? I love you," he said, the words falling without hesitation now. "Not because of this, not because of anything you've done, but because you see people, you saw me." Vanessa looked up at him, her eyes glimmering. "And I love you because you remind me who I really am, not the press release version, just me." They kissed, not with urgency, but with certainty. Around them, their children played, unaware of the history that had just shifted in their parents' hearts. Months later, Griffin stood in front of a small crowd on the same floor, now buzzing with children and laughter. He wore a navy shirt with the center's logo stitched over the pocket. Vanessa stood beside him, her hand resting on his back. "I used to think I had to do everything alone," he said. "Then I met someone who taught me that strength doesn't mean silence, that asking for help isn't weakness. And that love doesn't always come the way you expect it, but when it does, it's worth everything." The room applauded, but Griffin only looked at her. Afterward, while the kids painted paper lanterns and the parents chatted over coffee, Vanessa pulled him aside. "I have something for you." He narrowed his eyes playfully. "More surprises." She handed him a worn, folded piece of paper. "It's from Teddy." Griffin opened it. A drawing of 2 stick figures holding hands with Tessa and Teddy beside them. Above the sketch, the words, "Thank you for making Mommy smile again." His throat tightened. Vanessa slid her arms around his waist. "You gave him something I couldn't, stability, trust, a man who doesn't walk away. You gave me something I never thought I'd have again," he said. "A future I actually want." They stood in the middle of the center they'd built from 2 completely different worlds, now seamlessly stitched together. And as the sun dipped low behind the towering skyline, their children's laughter echoing through the halls, Griffin kissed Vanessa with the kind of love that didn't need proving anymore. It simply was, and always would be.